Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit für das deutsche Vaterland. Danach lasst uns alle streben, brüderlich mit Herz und Hand. Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit sind des Glückes Unterpfand. Blüh im Glanze dieses Glückes, blühe deutsches Vaterland. Blüh im Glanze dieses Glückes, blühe deutsches Vaterland. Einigkeit
Upgrade to Premium and unlock access to ad-free music. That means any playlist or radio station you want, without ad interruptions. With radio stations, create a collection of tracks based on the music you love. On any artist, album, song, or playlist, just click Go to Radio and listen to hours of similar music ad-free with Premium. Tap the banner to learn more.
Some guy called Peter managed to jump a skipping rope over 12,000 times in an hour. Really, it's a world record. We looked it up. Well, we think he'd like Spotify Premium. Instead of just 6 skips an hour, Premium gives you unlimited skips.
So you can jump between tracks as much as you like. Learn more about Premium when you tap the banner. Go on, do it for Peter.
Adam, der sprach nach 7 Tagen, oh Herr, ich muss dir sagen, die Erde ist schön. Aber mir scheint, du hast indessen das Wichtigste vergessen, so wird es nicht gehen. Menschen brauchen auch Musik und Gesang, fröhlichen Klang, ein Leben lang. Aber unser Herrgott lächelt und spricht, du denkst an Böhmen nicht. Aus Böhmen kommt die Musik, sie ist der Schlüssel zum Glück. Und alle Türen sperrt sie auf, bis in den Himmel hinauf. Glaub mir, aus Böhmen kommt die Musik, zu Herzen geht jedes Stück. In diesem wunderschönen Land ist jeder ein Musikant. Heute erklingt zu jeder Stunde ein Lied wie Rosamunde in Moll und in Dur. Die Böhmen, wie sie mit schönen Tönen die ganze Welt verwöhnen, wie machen sie's nur? Mitten in New York, in Rom und in Bern, auf Inseln ganz fern, da hört man es gern. Plötzlich trägt der Wind dir Töne ins Ohr, das kommt dir böhmisch vor. Ja, aus Böhmen kommt die Musik, sie ist der Schlüssel zum Glück. Und alle Türen sperrt sie auf, bis in den Himmel hinauf. Glaub mir, aus Böhmen kommt die Musik, zu Herzen geht jedes Stück. In diesem wunderschönen Land ist jeder ein Musikant. In diesem wunderschönen Land ist jeder ein Musikant.
Sorry that took so long. Here you go.
Wenn die Soldaten in die Stadt marschieren, öffnet die Mädchen die Fenster und die Türen. Ein Warum, ein Warum, ein Warum, ein Warum, ein los, winket
cliffs of these gorges, one can read a million years of the history.
Wenn der Frühling kommt, dann schick ich dir Türen aus Amsterdam. Wenn der Frühling
1,000 years, all of man's recorded history took place as an inch was deposited. All of organized science, a millimeter. All we know of genetics, a few tens of microns. Dramatic advances in the past few decades have led to the discovery of DNA and to the decipherment of the universal hereditary code, the age-old language of the living cell. And with this understanding will come the control of processes that have known only the mindless discipline of natural selection for 2 billion years. And now the impact of science will strike straight home, for the biological world includes us. We will surely come to the time when man will have the power to alter, specifically or consciously, his very genes. This will be a new event in the universe. The prospect is, to me, awesome in its potential for deliverance or equally for disaster.
Zu Befehl.
Hospital is scary to me. Having a certain new problem isn't scary to me anymore because it's happened so many times. I don't know. My blood just does not like me very much, I guess.
30.
Your red cells are supposed to be round and have oxygen in them. Mine are half moon shaped, sickle shaped, which is why it's called sickle cell. So I don't get the same amount of oxygen.
Damn, that sucks.
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
I always say like oil change. You know, you drain the dirty out and then put a clean in. Yeah, so he just needs a tune up every 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I said, you know, love you. Just don't let me play. This is my life.
Herr Kaloy? Ei, Herr Kaloy. Herr Kaloy?
Don't break it up.
Kapitän? Herr Kaloy? Bestätigt. Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloy. Alarm! Alarm, tauchen! Herr Kaloy? Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloy.
Simple change in the DNA sequence. It's the letter A changed to a letter T.
That's it.
That's it.
That mutation causes a kink in the protein that prevents it from folding properly. If your folding structure of a protein is disrupted, now that protein can't function. It causes the red blood cell to really collapse.
It becomes very stiff, and it can't squeeze through. And you're not able to get red blood cells in the tissues where they can deliver oxygen. And if you block the ability of oxygen to get to those tissues won't work well, and they'll get damaged. In Africa, the life expectancy for somebody with sickle cell disease is on the order of 5 to 8 years of age. In the U.S., it's the early to mid-40s.
What do you say to a kid that their life is going to be?
We avoid it. We avoid that conversation. It's not a conversation we're good at having.
Makes me very nervous.
40.
David can go from crazy teenager, jumping around, to a fetal position on his knees. It's like Hulk saying, "This hurts. You're having a sickle cell crisis." Like I can have like a little pain crisis where it really doesn't count, and then I can have something really bad. But I'm not just gonna not play basketball. You can't just not play basketball.
This is David's birth references. I'm going to say for research.
It's a genetic disorder. So in order to cure a genetic disorder, you literally have to go in and fix the gene.
We just didn't have the tools to make that single letter change in a precise fashion. Especially one letter.
Deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA for short, is the material that's the basis of life. Each living thing has its unique DNA that determines what that living thing will be, man or animal, man or muscle.
If we understood the structure of genes, the structure of chromosomes, and how genes work, then we might better be able to understand and treat genetic diseases which occur in humans.
30, Zero Tiefe.
That was probably the beginning. This dream of gene therapy was born out of those 1970s experiments, and we're still very far away from it, but we'll see people talking about that hope right now.
Scientists are working on genetic cures for diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. The idea behind gene therapy is really simple. Add in a copy of the gene that works. Then they'll make the protein.
Kapitän? Jawohl. Herr Kalol. Jawohl. Zu Befehl. Ei, ei, Herr Kalol. Ei, ei, Herr Kalol. Bestätigt.
Sticking something. Changing. Children would have died otherwise. 4 of his children developed cancer. 1 of them died. The gene went into the wrong place. Because it's a random process, and by chance it went into the wrong place, and that random event caused cancer. You know, you always think that
what you know is going to get a little better, a little better, a little better as soon as you get it. And what you knew how to do wasn't getting a whole lot better. It was getting a little bit better. The technology was just too clumsy to actually use it with you.
Wechseln auf E-Motor. Auf
Very
Seerohrtiefe.
clear to us that we are at the foot of a very tall mountain and we may not even have development right now. I worked at this company called Samuel Life Sciences. We decided
30.
to figure out a way to change images in a precise way. This would be like old processors with DNA.
50.
DNA breaks through. You get it to X-ray. Initially, before it's X-rays actually can do it. They physically create an X-ray. Familiar double helix of images. The good news is the cell has its own machine to fix and breaks. Inside our cells, there are two identical DNA molecules lying side by side. If one is broken, it can say to its sister, that requires the technical sister. It says, I'm sorry, I had a break. I'm wondering if I can halt the usage of communication. And the sister goes,
Wow.
cool. Sounds and smells and preserving life. There's really a hyperalcoholic of it. Why is that useful? So it's useful because if you can cut a gene inside a cell, so if you can create a protein at a place of interest, then you can change the gene. A piece of DNA which is identical to the chromosome that you're cutting, except for the change that you wish to make. Mother Nature will love that she's beautiful. She will repair the break using this piece of DNA you provided as a template. And so whenever change you pulls in,
Tanks anblasen. Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloi. Zu Befehl.
if you think of it like a person
What?
who keyboard, if you have a document, you edit first, you have to place the cursor in DNA. Wherever you make a cut is the equivalent of the cursor in this word processing genome. That's where you can type in the new word.
30.
So if you wanted to use that capability to
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
the challenge was to introduce breaks in the DNA in places where you wanted to
Wechseln auf Dieselmotor. Herr Kaloi.
How are we going to do that? We need something that cuts only one gene out of
Kapitän.
5,000 that we have. There were just such serious blocks of it. So it looked like it was going to be a long road. But that's what changed. And that came sort of overnight.
this doctor told me just hold on. There's something coming.
I was at a conference in New York, and it was a very strange conference in the futures. Just put on my Russian guy who's in missions, downloads an Android for this forever. This future people. All the future. I remember him saying, whenever this word CRISPR, CRISPR. It's like, graduate plastics or the word CRISPR. This is going to allow human genome engineering on an unprecedented scale.
in terms of millions of years? I mean, probably.
You are a student. You think everything is wrong.
I told you about this stuff.
But there are places where no one else will.
Josh?
The organism that you're working with is called Alpha Submarine. These microorganisms they all live in environments where the salinity is about tenfold that of the seawater. These tiny organisms are, I would say, short they're because of the evolution, of course.
Maybe not, Josh. Here's a Jewish blood.
Well, I'll tell you the story that I know. Microbial genome sequencing started sometime in the 1990s. What is that? So unraveling the DNA code of organisms of life. It's a relatively recent part of biology. And in the late 1990s, people started to turn their attention to the sequencing of microbial genomes. They're amazingly highly evolved entities that just chose a different way of surviving in the world than the cells that became us.
Herr Kaloy? Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloy.
We saw a very peculiar pattern. With very short fragments of
Herr Kaloy?
Jawohl,
Herr Kaloy, zu Befehl. Jawohl. Jawohl.
Alarm! Alarm tauchen!
Eventually realized these peculiar sequences, they were present in many different microorganisms. But they didn't have really any name. CRISPR came to my mind just thinking about the main features. Cluster, regularly, chain-spaced, short, palindrome repeats.
There really wasn't much capacity for anything like this in the DNA of any humans. And when you see something unusual, you
Wechseln auf
automatically assume that it's
E-Motor.
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
CRISPR is actually faster regularly interspace palindromic repeats. So it's actually named for the repeats. But what was really interesting were these sequences in between
30.
that were completely enigmatic.
Spacers.
And each space was different. I've never seen anything like this before.
Where the hell are these sequences from?
40.
I'm not aware of
shows Artic.
50.
This headline from a yogurt company saying Holy Grail is discovered.
What?
What was the yogurt company's Holy Grail? It was CRISPR. When did you get your CRISPR license plate?
40.
First one I got back in the days in Wisconsin. And when I first moved to North Carolina, the first thing I did was make sure I still had my CRISPR plates. People were like, you heard about this CRISPR thing, and like, dude, it's been 10 years without talking about it.
50.
CRISPR is a company that sells microbes to people who want to make food. A lot of foods are produced using bacteria, and yogurt, for example. Adolf was trying to work out how to deal with the problem of his bacterial cultures suddenly dying because of viral infections.
Most people don't believe that bacteria defend themselves against viruses. It's just no longer on the sort of front and center of people's agenda, but it should be.
Viruses are very simple, lean machines. They have one job to look for a host, take the host, and multiply. That's it. The virus will attach to the surface, and then it will inject genetic material. It hijacks the cell and uses the cell just as a factory of new viruses. And then it's all from the cell. This is when people call companies like this and say, you sold us a culture that's not working, we won't have it. But there's a small subset of the population that survives viralism. We don't know why they make it, but they make it. They become resistant. At that time, we still don't know what CRISPR is or what it does. So there's no assumption that CRISPR is involved. Now what we do is we take the survivor that made it, and then we check its DNA. The DNA sequence had changed.
New spacers that were not present before, and those spacers are identical to sequences from the virus that infect bacteria.
And now, it's here.
So now scientists have, at this point, of course, you should show Holmes and all what are these clues telling us?
Do the experiment 5 different times. Consistently, the bacteria wired a spacer that contains a sequence of that virus. It became resistant. So you continue. You lose the resistance.
Yeah, right. DNA. The microbial cell and bacteria will die. And how does it survive?
Oh, that was like, we got it. CRISPR is an immune system.
What an idea. Piece of the genome of the predator now stuck in your genome so you can recognize it in the future.
Bacteria have memory. They are able to remember invaders, regularize them, and kill them. And that's
At the time, it's useful in manufacturing cultures that are resistant to virus. It's extremely valuable. But we don't know if these are false. We have no idea how useful and how useful.
first heard about it when I had coffee with Joe Manfield, my colleague here at Berkeley, at the Classic Berkeley Cafe. One thing I watched my tombstone was told Jennifer Downer about Crispy Cats. Like that will be the sum of my life. I love things that I'm not allowed to pay attention to. There's certain CRISPR residents early days, not anymore, but early days, things like that. And then you always ask yourself, is everybody else just a lot smarter than me and they figured out that this is a dead path? We're biochemists in the lab. We study the way molecules work. We try to isolate them from all of the other pieces and parts of the cell. We love to ask, what are the essential parts of this little machine? In nature, what CRISPR systems are doing is they're giving bacteria immunity to viruses, so they're protecting them from viruses.
When an invader shows up, the bacterium has a way to store a small bit of the invader's in its own. When the invader comes back, the bacterium makes a copy, like a little roller coaster, of that space, and gives it to the marvelous machine at the heart of CRISPR. Strawberry protein that Cas9 is truly wondrous. When Cas9 polices the intracellular agents, it literally pushes the of that post-mortem poster with it. Ask everyone that comes in, do you contain an exact match to this little post-wanted poster that I'm here? Yes? Then okay.
The thing about Cas9 that struck me at the time was that, fundamentally this thing was a programmable protein that finds and cuts DNA. As a tool, right? You could immediately see a lot of uses for something like that.
I will never forget reading the last paragraph of Jennifer Downer's evaluation case deserved more than just so I'm going to use it carefully. Immortal science paper, which they describe that Cas9 can be directed. Cas9 cuts DNA based on instructions called Artic.
RNA, I think about it as DNA's chemical cousin. Like DNA, it has 4 letters, and they can form pairs of matching letters in DNA.
30.
The letters in the RNA allow Cas9 to find a unique DNA sequence. Bacteria are programming this thing all the time.
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
But because it's using these little RNA molecules, those can easily be exchanged. RNA molecules are trivial to make in a molecular biology lab or order from a company. And I can cut any DNA I want just by changing this little piece of RNA. It's clearly a useful tool. And initially I was thinking about that, right? Because again, I'm a biochemist, right? I was thinking about it as a tool. I was thinking about all the cool experiments you can now do with this tool, right? I was thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about, oh my gosh, this is a tool that, it fundamentally allows us to change our relationship with nature. It actually allows us to change human evolution.
they want to. It's that
In my left hand here, I have purified Cas9 nucleus, and in my right hand here, I have a guide RNA. And so CRISPR essentially is the combination of these two ingredients.
Not with the people in control. Not with the people in control right now.
I have to say, it didn't.
It all depends on whose hands that's in.
Until I started seeing the data that this could be an extraordinary transformation. You know, it was real.
You can actually use CRISPR in humans to change DNA. You can actually do it.
Here's a copy of a human gene. Give it to Cas9 and put it inside human cells. It runs away, binds that DNA.
Before CRISPR, we were getting 1 to 2% correction. We're now up to 50 to 80% of the cells. This could really work. This could really cure a patient.
I think it's going to help a lot of people. Not just people with sickle cell. Because I know they're working on it for other things. And I know so many other people that have things like this. Like my friend, he had leukemia. He actually needed to make it. If he had it just a little bit later, of course he probably could have been cured of that, because that's what they're working on.
CRISPR has really the ability to recognize and to target any piece of DNA, any type of cell and organism. It's really a universal tool. It's often described as a kind of Swiss Army knife.
Auf 30, 50.
We have thousands of customers who are using a wide variety of organisms, pretty much any organism you can think of, from butterflies to dogs to horses to lizards. We have design tool online. Specify a gene that you need to knock out.
40.
Specify the types of edits that you're looking to do. Swipe the quick a few days later. Tubes of all materials that you show there.
Obviously, to validate the researchers' authenticity and credibility with regards to the institution.
50.
The analogy I like is automobiles. There were cars before there were Model Ts. And they were expensive. Ford comes out with the Model T. And
40.
it's cheap. It's reliable. Pretty soon everybody's got a car.
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
Wechseln auf Dieselmotor.
What does that do? Anything? Can you literally do anything you want with those genes? What if I wanted to, like...
Gives us the chance to make precise, targeted changes in the DNA of any living organism. It's the power to change the biosphere. That's what makes CRISPR revolutionary.
sort of describe your
Oh, here? Oh, so here is the Genesis garage. This is our lab space. It's literally the basement. I feel it's a humble start for us, where we embark on very exciting journey.
Here is called signal transplantation. Transplantation of another one species to eggs. These things are not to thrive and somewhat could be people were radiating habits, that kind of stuff. They were trying to transplant monkey testes into men to make them more virulent. So conceptually, people have been trying this. But scientifically, this thing is probably about 20 years old. I could be very simple.
This pig, only working with these pigs have been modified very, very slightly. 20 years ago, artists about $1 billion investment that so basically treated. They just didn't have technology.
Without the CRISPRs, can't do it.
Wuhan they started as a ragtag team of scientists in my academic lab, and then they went to a ragtag team based in a startup incubator.
When first we started, I thought it is science, they're going to make a pig that doesn't speak human language, but they can donate organs for the patient and save the world from like organ shortage. I mean, it really takes a lot.
As you can imagine, if you put the organ from the pig into the human, there's a rejection. We can really exercise the power of CRISPR to engineer immunocompatibility by knocking out genes and knocking in genes.
Part of to our encyclopedia of this thing. So what CRISPR does is that they can find like a specific word in the encyclopedia and delete that word. But instead of like deleting a few words, we have to change paragraphs after paragraph.
Right now, the conventional practice is doing 1 or 2 genes, and the record before us is 5. We did 62 genes in single step.
We have a revolution going on, and we've never had a revolution. Like the closest we've come is the internet, computer revolution. And that took us kind of unaware.
They are committed. So we are expecting them in a few weeks. We're so excited we even named the pig. The first one is Laika. It's the name of the Soviet dog which orbit the Earth first. We want to symbolize it as an animal which can lead us to a new era of science.
А сейчас хотелось бы передать слово уважаемому президенту Российской Федерации Владимиру Владимировичу Путину.
Вот генная инженерия, которая, безусловно, даст нам потрясающие возможности новых лекарств. Изменение человеческого пода, если человек страдает генетическим заболеванием. Замечательно. Ведь это так хорошо. Если другая система еще процесса. Это значит, что уже можно это представить, что человек может создавать человека с заданными характеристиками. Это может быть гениальный математик. Это может быть гениальный музыкант. Но может быть и военный. Человек, который может воевать без страха и без боли.
What the fuck?
То есть, понимаете, человек...
Fight without fear of pain, like a soldier?
Очень сложный и очень ответственный период своего развития существования.
I wouldn't want to. Who would want to do that?
Может быть страшнее ядерной бомбы.
Fight with my fear taken away? I'm gonna get myself killed.
A man haunted by a vision of hell on earth. Mr. Huxley, 27 years ago, wrote Brave New World. Today, Mr. Huxley says that his fictional world of horror is probably just around the corner for all of us.
But they wouldn't do it to somebody like us. They'd grow
literature class in high school. And yeah, it was startling. I was dropped out. But I reread it recently, and I was startled by how a book written in 1932 could have the foresight to predict in vitro fertilization. Now, of course, it went beyond. It told a story where human beings were literally manufactured to play specific roles in society. It was so sobering to me because CRISPR makes that original work about engineering imagery actually feasible.
We mustn't be caught by surprise by our own advancing technology. This has happened again and again in history with technology as advanced, this changes social conditions, and suddenly people have found themselves in a situation which they didn't foresee and doing all sorts of things they didn't really want to do.
There is no question in my mind that as this field advances, people will be able to order a change in their genetic makeup to create an outcome of interest to them in their metabolism, in their appearance, and principal potentially in who they are as people, personality changes.
Oh no.
And again, we have to be delicate to not cross into science fiction territory. We
Yeah.
know that we can engineer a single gene in biostatics in a way that could potentially make us all more muscular. But should we make that universally available? They discovered that go by on 4 hours of sleep. What would I give for that? One gene, one change, 4 hours of sleep. So, should this be, I don't know, a job requirement for air traffic control? Do I want the world to go there? There are people who feel no pain. This was discovered by studying a 14-year-old boy, who felt no pain.
What the fuck?
He performed surgery. He died before his 14th. He jumped for money off a house roof. He knew it was chance. The study of his DNA revealed he has a mutation in one gene. It's a protein that transmits the pain signal from the periphery, your finger, or your skin, through the spine to your brain. Get rid of that gene, you cannot transmit the signal if you don't. Why? Well, I'll give you a legitimate reason. Pain due to cancer is terrible, especially if it's terminal cancer and the young person has months to live. Why not get rid of that gene? And I'm sure this will be. I'm sure this will be. We will have gene editing of that gene. Now, do I want a scenario where there are parts of the world where special forces soldiers are able to torture. I don't think my job is that different than what scientists do. There's a lot of kind of hunting around, hunting and pecking, looking under things, turning over stones. And eventually, you kind of get on the scent of something. That's when the fun starts. Before science gets published, it circulates in science. Papers go out to review, someone passes to somebody else, like they have a certain circulation. And so I've gotten on the trail of these papers coming out of China. This was the first case where somebody said about, I'm going to use CRISPR and I'm going to modify the memory. They had knocked out CCR5. This is a receptor that if you don't have it, you can't get infected with HIV. But think about what they were proposing. They said, we're going to make someone who's immune to HIV. Once I started digging into it, I found more examples of people that were thinking along these lines. John Zang, that's the biggest fertility clinic in the country. And then he started a company called Darwin Life. He said that he was enthusiastic about the whole idea of design. He basically said that, of course, that's the whole point. No. To get a signal company called Omascience. They discovered a tape recording that they put on their own website. Investor little correct mutations in all the child. Essentially,
I ended up having several dreams that were very intense for me at the time, where I walked into a room and a colleague said, I want to introduce you to someone, and I wanted to tell them they want to know about this. And I walked into this room and there was a silhouette of a chair and someone sitting back to me. And as they turned around, I realized with the horror that it was and he leaned over and said, so, tell me all about Cas9. I remember waking up from that dream and I was shaking. I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Alarm tauchen!
Kapitän? Aye, aye, Herr Kalol.
Aye, aye, Herr Kalol. Bestätigt. Bestätigt, Herr Kalol. Sehr wohl, Herr Kalol. Sehr wohl, Herr Kalol. Auf Seerohrtiefe.
So why not just do it so that the CG never gets past the launch of future generations? And there's some people out there that's what we should do. But we may be creating things that we can't bring back.
30.
When we engineer gene changes into my blood, into my skin, those gene changes die with me. Like the germ cells, sperm, eggs. Those cells are
40.
They're part of what we call the germ. If we engineer gene changes into my sperm, they're passed into my son. They're passed into his son. And forever. Sketch.
50.
Grows fairly strongly with fairly unequivocal type called two-edit germ. We proposed that there be an unconditional moratorium. Don't edit human embryos. Don't use edited sperm and eggs to reproduce. Just when we go through this researchers, we enable multiple that's what the debate that's been had is whether society should go in this direction. Should you be allowed to make the genetic changes in the next generation that will then go on to other generations? The gene pool of nature itself is kind of a common good. I used to have a t-shirt and I had a guy that was kind of DNA inspired, right? But he was blowing the whistle. And he says, hey, you can have the gene pool. I'll go finish it.
40.
Baby doctor. Imagine being able to program the IQ of a baby.
We'll be sitting at computer terminals like this one, punching up the traits we would like in our children, like the shape of their faces or the color of their eyes. Well, you know, the fear that everybody focuses on most is this designer baby business.
We're turning reproduction into production. We're turning children into consumer products.
Every time there's a new technology,
George,
the same concerns.
If there's a market for cloning, there is no force on earth that will separate.
Perhaps you don't say would like to be able to see.
With CRISPR, even reputable magazines could not resist the temptation. A little thing that says, "Hub IQ," as if you know what intelligence is, let alone how to measure it, let alone how to design it. Ignoring the fact that we've seen the same argument every decade for the last 5 decades, and these nightmares haven't come to pass. We are capable of really evil things, but we don't need technology to commit evil acts. If the goal is genocide, if the goal is eugenics, if the goal is discrimination, there will be another way to do it, and it is
Jawohl.
I grew up with the original Star Trek.
Zu Befehl.
And have been a devoted follower of all of Star Trek since then. I've read pretty much every Star Trek novel. Don't get me started. It is a vision of progress and the potential of science to make life better. There are other people who have read the cautionary tales. But I don't think the technologies are inherently good or evil. The technologies are tools that are capable to turn this result is a good flaw or something. But it's not the tool that determines the effect, it's the reason.
And we're all representing mothers where we go. 23 or 4. Now,
Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloy.
we put them together.
Our way of determining the variance.
30 Tiefe.
And it's a perfectly good argument to say, I would rather take a lot.
Well, I think the right way to
Wechseln auf
say
E-Motor.
sex is for recreation and science is for procreation. 50 years from now, people may say, like, I can't believe this barbaric people in the early 21st century, they were having kids this crazy old-fashioned way. They were just like rolling the dice with their kids' lives.
40.
Got through in vitro fertilization. You've harvested the eggs. It's not common to use one possibility is, yeah, just roll the dice with this next one. Another option would be I run some advanced genetic tests. Pre-implantation genetic diagnosis is the
process of doing genetic tests on them. When I talk to most people about it, it's not so true. It was first used clinically in 1990. With today's technology, we limited to looking at only a handful of traits. But soon, genome sequencing will be cheap enough, easy enough, and accurate enough that you'll be able to learn everything genetics can tell you. In the future, let's imagine maybe you don't need to produce lots of one, but you can make whatever edits you want.
So the carriers we were just talking about earlier, we saw disorders that show up. Everyone wants to have a healthy birthday. How can I make sure that my child will be healthy? How can I make sure that they're going to have some of these positive traits that they're going to do well? The opinion is that information is everyone wants more information, and either wants more, give them a whole bunch of information they even want more. I actually first heard about genetic counseling from my mother. Hemophilia A is the condition that runs in my family. It's a genetic bleeding disorder. There is a gene on the X chromosome. It codes for a protein called factor VIII. When factor VIII isn't working, you're going to have the bleed that will lead to death.
Kapitän?
If I were to decide to have children naturally without connected technology, I am putting my child at 25% risk to have a severe disorder. That responsibility feels like
Zu Befehl!
takes the my decision. Today is unusual because I know
Tanks anblasen!
with no genetic information about yourself.
Reis auf
Wechseln auf
Seerohrtiefe.
Dieselmotor.
What about the cost of it? In the short term, there's a disturbing possibility that people with means will be availing themselves of this technology. We don't have those people in contact. So I kind of hope for a future where government makes it free for everybody. We have a generally healthier population, maybe longer lived, maybe slightly smarter
Herr Kaloy?
population matters. So if we have a smaller fraction of the population with Down syndrome,
Then your parents can literally say, "I made you that way,"
society would function more efficiently.
and they can be right.
Kapitän?
I got a list.
Prevent the degeneration of the race, build its inborn quality.
Well, the concept of eugenics, if you go way back, it really just
Wechseln auf
Auf
E-Motor.
Seerohrtiefe.
the idea is that the human race could improve itself.
Kinder setzt man nicht Mädels, damit sie da sind, sie gehen, sondern es sollen gesunde, wertvolle Menschen werden. Und da ist
30.
seine Erbgesundheit prüfen lässt. Das und das Erben mit der Vorfahrt wert ist, dass man es weiterlebt.
It was, of course, object. When people today talk about eugenics, they think specifically of the Nazis or Nazi Germany, of compulsory sterilization, where by force people were compelled to be sterilized or killed because the state didn't like their genes.
They were shocked last month over the revelation that the state of Virginia sterilized thousands of persons between 1922 and 70.
50.
Misfits. What we're talking about here, where we're being paid to do these genetic tests with loving parents who want to have a child, to equate that with Nazism, I think just not just stupid, but actually insane.
I've taken the liberty to eradicate any potentially infectious conditions, alcoholism, disability, violence, obesity.
We didn't want a diseases.
Where's the child? Yes, that's stuff. That's child. Second best.
My greatest fear in life, honestly, my two greatest fears.
Current show, which is January 23rd, 2019. I'm with Dan Chase. We're talking about life in the Third Reich. This was a talk given by a German fellow back in 2002. His name was Friedrich Courage, and we're going to discuss this. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks, Brian. I'm looking forward to this because it all started when I went to a telephone talk, and he had the collection of books there, and he had this little book, and it was Life in the Third Reich, and the political situation in the world at that time and today. And so Kurt did this speech to a group of truthers, and it was published in the German document in 2002, the Der Schlesinger Weekly. It was the German Weekly. So that was July 26, 2002. And I really found that it was a short read, it's about 14 pages, and you can find it in PDF form online. And I just thought it was a great opportunity to give people some insight into what it was like when Hitler was in power.
The good old days,
yeah, the good old days.
20 Meter.
It's very growing up at that time.
So, what President Burke said is he begins with, I'm pleased to speak to you about our life in the Third Reich during the Hitler era because that time in our history has been intentionally and maliciously misinterpreted by today's politicians and the compliant media. It goes on to say, I'm Thuringian and was born into a small, old farm family with 7 children. I lived through the Hitler era and mindful of that time in our history. I'm a graduate engineer studied in Thuringia, my home state. And then Kurt goes on to say that later on, his father died of a stroke, and his mother did not have money to continue his education. So he says, but in National Socialist Germany, that wasn't a problem because we could apply for free education and a subsistence allowance for the, from the state.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's just one of the programs that the National Socialists did. So what I thought I'd do was at least give an idea of what life was like for the Germans before the National Socialists were in power, and then get into some of the programs that the National Socialists had, along with the innovative things that the Germans did during that period. So the things that they created. So let's begin. So after the signing of the Armistice Agreement on November 11, 1918, the blockade of Germany was not lifted. It continued for many months after the war, during which time the Allied powers did not allow the delivery of foodstuffs to Germany. So during that time, there was a British blockade, and Germany was forced into an unprecedented Hungary War. And an estimated 763,000 German children, women, and elderly perished from undernourishment and illness. So Fritz often, throughout his document, talks about how the goal of the British and those behind the British government and also the American government, their goal was to exterminate the German people. So it says, that's war that damaged the earth. We did everything we had to starve women and children in Germany. Churchill, who was an influential politician in his slogan, should Germany begin to trade in the next 50 years, we would have to have imperialism. So in the Versailles Dictate, Germany had to provide that its to the This amounted to 100 billion gold mines. Because of these monstrous reparation payments in gold, the mark was no longer covered by this method. This led to uncontrolled inflation. To keep us savings were null and void. A loaf of bread cost 2 billion bucks, and a pound of butter 2 quadrillion marks. The currency mark became paper without coverage. What made matters worse is that the common person cannot find work. And I think it's interesting to look at the currency issue at that time, because if you look at our fiat currency today, of course, we do not have backing with our dollars here. So,
it could happen again.
It could happen again. So, Kurt gets into, well, how did I survive this predicament? He said, well, whole armies of unemployed went to the country to beg for food for their families. In smaller towns, the unemployed offered their services to local farmers just for the bare necessities of life. After the potato harvest, throngs of people went to the fields to glean whatever potatoes were left in the ground. He goes on to say the average worker could not buy coal for heating.
Just Irish potato harvest.
40, 20 Meter.
Right to gather broken off
Du Befehl.
for firewood in the forest. Every day, one saw long columns of people heading towards the forest to gather firewood. And I must say, our forests were in much cleaner condition then than they are today.
It's a rough life, terrible life that we go through. The streets are sorry.
And so then he gets into the Communist Party of Germany.
No, that was not during
the things that they did to the farmers, right? Because he was from a farming family. So he said the farmers in Thuringia were mostly smallholders and were often short of money or in debt. The communists rated them as landholders and were therefore seen as political opponents. Our little farm was surprise attack by them. These intrusions were always accompanied by rude and arrogant behavior. They demanded that food be put on the table for them, naturally without any offer of payment. My father told my mother, give them anything they want, otherwise they'll burn the house down. In fact, the sky was sometimes lit up by a burning farmhouse. It was said that the communists were responsible. Fear was our constant companion at that time. A revolutionary situation prevailed in the countryside. Only after Hitler formed the SS did the nightmare end in relative peace and order return. So it gets into when Hitler came to power. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler was democratically elected as leader of the German Reich. He promised work and bread, and the German people looked hopefully forward to a new beginning and a better future under him. Hitler did not put an end to the Jewish banquet. Unlike today, when many countries are indebted to him, he found a new and better way, an economy by and for. This is a unique and great achievement. Because of this, he had earned the displeasure of the world and capitalism.
40.
Before Hitler came to power, there were 6 to 7 million unemployed. Hitler had most of them working within 2.5 years. Within 5 years, it was full employment situation. And then he goes on to say, the enemies, his enemies would often claim that the employment was due to Germany's economy. And he's saying that's not true.
Yeah, that's the line I was up with, that he's built up the economy building up the war.
Yeah, so that's not true. And so Kurt gives some numbers because really he didn't build up the armament until as it they were approaching war when France and Britain declared war. So here are the numbers showing Germany's armament expenses in Reichsmark and percentages of the national product. So from 1933-34, it was 1.9 billion Reichsmark, or 4% of national product. The next period, 34-35, it was the same. Then from 35 to 36, it was 4 billion Reichsmark, so 7% of the national product. And then 36 to 37, it was 5.8 billion, or 9% of the national product. And then the next period, 37 to 38, it was 8.3 billion Reichsmark, so 11% of national product. And then, of course, when they were declaring war on Hitler, then it rose to 22%, or 18.4 billion Reichsmark in 38-39.
Yeah, there was such a persistent lie when I was educated. It just built up the economy with the military. That never made any sense because it doesn't create consumer goods just going up the military. But it's just a lie, and we were told that people tend to believe it.
That's right. So actually, over the first 4 years, it was well below 10%. And then it rose to 11% in 1937-38, and then doubled to 38-39.
And his military is much smaller than its neighbors, like France. It's really justified in terms of defense for having a reasonable military.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it goes on to talk about the relationship between workers and employers, in the National Socialist state. And Hitler looked at that as a good force in building your economy, having that good relationship between employer and worker. But it was also a good way. So in the National
Bestätigt.
Worker and employer belong to the whole. They were not to be agitated or contrary to So he said the principle was that an employer needs to benefit the workforce, workers need enterprise created. The belief was that the workers' brains belonged to a community. This was also that so all these show that object of exploitation by the victors of World War I. Well, the first thing Hitler did was he wanted to help the poor. So Hitler fostered a people-oriented economy. In order to alleviate a great need, he immediately started the charitable winter help campaign of the German people. The motto was, "None shall hunger and none shall freeze." This was an immediate benefit to the German people.
Very good, yeah.
It goes on to say, it was a social project of the greatest magnitude and was a great success. The recipients produced small wood carvings, glass objects, and other handcrafted items. These were given as a sign of gratitude for donations they received. People wore or displayed these items as a sign of having contributed to the campaign. This was also an incentive for the rest of the German people to contribute. Hitler had the idea to build the Autobahn, and also the fact that he wanted workers to be able to own their cars. So Kurt goes on to say, in order to provide employment for the army of jobless people, the program mobilization of Germany was started. This project involved using only German materials. Today, our highways have asphalt, which is an oil product, on the top. Because oil products had to be paid for in dollars, and Germany had none, we had to use concrete plates, which were poured on the spot. Yeah, there's Hitler digging into the earth and starting the Alpine project. It's a great ship, though.
Yeah, good shot of it, mate. People are like that. Like this person, right?
Yeah. So if you look here, you can see the concrete.
It's second wide, so slabs, right? Those wide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They didn't have asphalt. Yeah, well done. Great German ingenuity.
Oh, they were good.
Yeah.
So during the Albany manufacturers were requested to prepare estimates for the average cars were to retail for 1,350 to 1,600 light marks for $238 to $400. But Hitler thought these prices were too high. He wanted a new, more modern car at a lower price. The Hitler's concept, Professor Porsche, came up with the Volkswagen, the people's car. The name came from Hitler. It became the most produced vehicle in Europe. Originally, its cost was $200 million and could be purchased by installments. And then the German chemists came up with a product to produce automobile tires because, again, for automobile tires, you need natural rubber, which they couldn't necessarily get access to. So the German chemists produced auto tires from domestically available materials such as coal, which was converted to a useful element through polymerization. And gasoline and crude oil could only be purchased for dollars, which Germany did not have. But the ingenuity of the German scientists led to producing fluid gasoline out of coal. And this process is still used in South Africa. Yes, this is the one on clothing. Because there were no dollars to buy cotton from foreign countries, the first synthetic fibers were produced under Hitler. The fibers were combined with wool and created nice, comfortable clothing. After the war, the patents were stolen from us, and we had to buy clothes from the U.S. We had to pay in U.S. because the patents were war booty. Here it gets into the housing project under the National Socialism. The construction of owner-occupied houses and apartments for workers was visible everywhere in Germany. Financing was extremely favorable. Young families with children received generous low-cost loans and mortgages with an amortization period of 10 years. This enabled them to buy a new home with a garden or a spacious apartment. For newly married couples, their mortgage was reduced by 25% on the birth of the first child, and by the same percentage for each subsequent child. On the birth of the fourth child, the mortgage was written off altogether. Hitler said, in the period of 10 years, the family will not only have its loan paid off, but the state will recover these monies through taxes on the hundreds of household goods that were purchased during this period. The houses were built of the highest quality. This photo here is from a website called The Third Reich .com. So I just want to give them credit for it. But you can see that the houses that were built by the National Socialists are still in use today. You can see that they just maybe added on the back of them or added a garage on their side. But obviously they were pretty well built homes to still be in use today.
Yeah.
So So by the end of 1933, Hitler's government had built 202,119 houses through his building program. In 4 years, 1,458,178 new houses had been built in the German. The rent for the participation gathers that was part was not allowed to go above 1/8 of the income of the average worker. Salaried employees with higher incomes paid up to a maximum of 45 Reichsmarks per month. So the Germans actually were the first to build a cruise line. That was in the 1900s, I think 1900 or 1901. But Hitler wanted to build a cruise ship or a group of cruise ships for workers. So the first holiday cruise ships for workers were built in Hitler's Germany. German workers could go on very inexpensive cruises. These new ships were equipped with the most modern facilities. They were, however, prohibited from visiting English ports by the British government. The obvious reason was that English workers were not allowed to see what German workers under national socialism could afford and enjoy.
It's during Hitler's time, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So some of the favorite destinations were the Portuguese island of Madeira, Spanish islands, and coastal cities. Then it goes on about the miners and the steel workers. And because Germany did not have U.S. dollars, you would purchase high-quality iron ore from Sweden that contained over 80% iron. The process called the Submarine process was developed. This enabled us to use the low percent, the 23 to 25% iron content ore mines in the Seaberland region. German miners and steelworkers were now employed in metalworking plants for back in business. Of course, this was a conflict without
Feindlicher Zerstörer auf
Jewish
10
international financiers in England and the
Angriffsbefehl für dieses Ziel übermitteln.
The barter system, that's very good.
Yeah, and he gets more into that, like, trading as well with, other countries. But here I think it shows how innovative they can be, right?
50.
With metal. So Kurt said, these grandiose accomplishments were the result of the innovative genius and creativity of the German workers and their leader Adolf Hitler. He gave the German people their self-confidence back. Without putting our country in debt, we had become a free and independent nation. This we should not forget.
That's right.
So he goes into, there was never a financial crisis in Hitler's Germany. So he said, as I mentioned, I come from a family of farmers. This is why I would like to speak to you about how Hitler solved the problem of the farming scene. Because of the inflation prior to national socialism, German farmers had lost all of their savings. Foreign Jews and other speculators took this opportunity to gouge Germany financially, and make a killing in the process. It was said, go to Germany, there you can purchase a factory or farm for and they came in droves. By taking over loans for houses, the way was open for our
Angriffsbefehl für dieses Ziel
forced
übermitteln.
auction of our property, office ownership,
Angriffsbefehl für dieses Ziel übermitteln.
In 1933, things changed drastically under Adolf Hitler. And a huge gathering of farmers on the Buchenberg on the day of the German farmers in 1935, Hitler proclaimed the law of agricultural succession. It stipulated that only property of 7.5 hectares or more are
30. Meter.
Have you ever noticed how so-called vulnerable groups, which means every human alive except white men, how they have the entire might of the state, fighting their cause every turn, while the so-called privileged group, white men, are completely denied all forms of protection? The term itself, vulnerable group, is so odious, so utterly false that it bears words. And stronger than sympathy,
Rohr 5, bewässern!
Their protected, elevated social status bizarrely only
Rohr 5 bewässert.
And the more marginalised and silenced we become, the more we will be despised as oppressors. Our fate, no matter how awful, is concerned. None of this is hyperbole. It's frustrating that so many cannot or will not open their eyes to it. It's hard to overstate the seriousness of what nationalists are facing now. We live under governments that are now openly working for the destruction of our people and only our people. And it's becoming a crime to even talk about it. This is what inevitably happens when you hand power to people who do not share your values, history, or culture. They start to see your existence as the problem. The live multiculturalism was laid bare once
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
Hamza Yousaf,
Wechseln auf
Justice
Dieselmotor.
Secretary of Scotland, heralded the arrival of a new hate crime, saying, "I am delighted Home has backed this powerful legislation that is fitting for the Scotland we live in." How true that statement is. This viciously anti-white legislation because Scotland, like most of the West, is now corrupted by decades of hostile third-world immigration and ethnic infiltration. This legislation includes the new offence of stirring up hatred on
Höhenbruch, Sie sinken! Herr Kaloi, Feuer an Deck! Höhenbruch, Sie sinken!
Which means that if any member of one of these so-called vulnerable groups doesn't like
Feuer an Deck! Höhenbruch, Sie sinken! Hüllenbruch, Sie sinken. Hüllenbruch, Sie sinken. Feuer an Deck. Wir haben ihn. Sie sinken.
Things are no better, except
Feuer an Deck.
another non-white in the position of power is also pushing for changes to the law to shut them out.
Wir haben ihn.
This report was recently published by government agency, the Commission for Countering Extremism. Lead Commissioner Sarah Khan said, this report highlights two stark realities. Firstly, due to a lack of law,
Sie gehen unter ihn. Sie gehen unter.
Extremists have been able to exploit gaps in existing legislation. As a result, this is promoting some of the most shocking and dangerous extremist activity and material in Britain. She's even talking about activities like this, by the way. She's talking about all nationalist activity. She wants to make us criminals for our beliefs. Because nationalists don't incite violence, the anti-whites need to expand the scope of hate crime laws to capture all nationalist activity. If you are white and not ashamed to be white, you will fall foul of these laws at some point. I believe wholeheartedly that the intention is ultimately to make dissent itself illegal. It's a grim landscape, and I wish I could tell you I'm optimistic.
So müde.
I'm not sure. But from the way he used the word, it's like, just like, yeah, opposition, basically.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's recent interview with Oprah Winfrey, and I couldn't help but notice how relevantly Fallout 5 is to the legislation I just discussed. Piers Morgan was forced to resign from his job simply because he did not believe the torrent of lies Meghan Markle told in the interview.
And he's a hardcore liberal.
White, the protection she has received punishes her detractors like Morgan. Most certainly is because she's not white.
He's super anti-gun.
Black Republic is now essentially a social crime, regardless of what is said. And in truth, it's not just white men. It's ultimately all white men. And they will at some point expect all of us to grovel in return for being able to have any semblance of anything. You will also most likely have heard about the recent tragic murder of Sarah Everard in the UK. This appalling crime is now being hijacked to push another AstroTurf Me Too movement, advancing the narrative that women are not safe to go out because of the danger posed to them by men. It's also being used by the government to ramp up the surveillance state, with proposals for a massive increase in CCTV and plainclothes police in entertainment venues across the UK, all in the interests of protecting women, of course. The ugly reality is that if Sarah had been murdered by a non-white, we would not have witnessed anything like this response to her murder. What mass outrage did we hear about the industrial scale weapons
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
That was deliberately hushed up for years by police and politicians. So this is not about the safety
dieses Ziel übermitteln.
Schiffsschrauben hergenommen. 40. Auf Seerohrtiefe.
The monsters look
Oh, whatever. No, whatever. Fuck.
And of course, the media
I don't know, man. I'd have to.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
It's just to isolate it into, just like what my mom does, just tripping on her. But
because the suspect wasn't white. That was
Yeah,
pretty
if your friend's acting rapey,
which means it
Yeah,
didn't
say that.
fit
yeah.
And
Melde mich zum Dienst.
And also tell people who hang out around, like, yeah, I don't hang out.
Shootings that have left 8
Yeah, that's true.
There is absolutely
Nothing wrong with that. Call him out.
Indeed, he told police he suffers from sex addiction. He is clearly deranged. But that's not useful to the anti-white narrative, so is ignored. All that matters to the anti-whites is the story that a white man kills some non-white women, which is now, by their definition, a white supremacist attack. Anything a white person now says or does is used as evidence of their hatred for other races. You just can't win in this anti-white system. When I say truth no longer matters, I'm not being flippant. So-called white supremacy is no longer integrated in non-whites killing white men, white whites. We live one day and many of our people have been complicit in that destruction. So these are not times to be faint-hearted. If you get down on your knees before people who despise you, you aren't going to get any of a crime they tell you committed. You're going to get repeated kicks in the face, and you're going to deserve them. All this comes down to just one question. How much ground do we give before we say no more? The anti-whites' intent is to completely
20 Meter.
silence us. Will they silence you? Until next time, be well.
Something on my hair at the moment.
Tanks anblasen!
Jawohl. Seerohrtiefe.
You're telling it up to do the upper level stuff? Yeah, I'm about to talk.
Herr Kaloi?
Beautiful lady.
Welcome to
Wechseln auf Dieselmotor!
Everyone knows
I'm very happy with what I achieved on the course of money before. But now that's over and we must move forward. So let's grow these new platforms and our movements together. I think Odyssey, which is just like different design, is emerging as the best alternative to YouTube, but I will also maintain the presence of YouTube. And Gab is now the one true alternative to Twitter for us, so find me and most other national creators on
the male voice like that, Catherine,
When Disney took over the Star Wars franchise in 2012, it always planned to make it vehicles with remotely leftist diversity.
Bestätigt.
Disney's first film, released back in 2015, featured a tough female lead with prominent non-white characters, which stood in stark contrast to the original and much beloved films of the 1970s and 80s that were dominated by
Jawohl, Herr Kaloi.
Disney was then at the forefront of this anti-white trend that has only increased since then, as all levels of society. Since the first film, the role of white male characters has only diminished, and with that, the brand of Star Wars itself.
Herr Kaloi?
The first scene of the first Disney trailer featured a white stormtrooper, John Boyega, which confused many fans who believed that the stormtroopers were an army of clones and could not possibly be racially diverse.
Yeah.
By simply telling fans to get used to it. No surprise for me then, when last year the headlines for playing a very different but no less unconvincing one, featuring the anti-white Pierre Gospel Park.
Kapitän?
That was better than like, no matter when like like, I kind of like, not in that, not entirely, but like a big
Herr Kaloi?
complex being is a big thing.
I'm not even trying to
Herr
talk
Kaloi?
about just beyond it. But I'm just done talking about it.
Jawohl, Herr Kaloi. Kapitän? Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloi. Sehr wohl, Herr Kaloi.
The speech arranged against the corporate and political machines of Belgium, saying he feared for his career and his brainless stance. Of course, it was not brave in the slightest. His agent likely got him that gig because he understood just how lucrative that was and so convicted months ago, reporting his career has since gone from strength to strength, culminating in his recent win at the Golden Globes. In this anti-white society, quality is important. Even profits often take second place to advancement. In the West, white talent is increasingly overlooked in favour of the next diversity, so the quality of all media and culture continues to steep decline. Fearing that white rhetoric will be shoehorned into every act
Wechseln auf ihn.
it's just an excuse to Netflix. The inclusion of internet streams into every expected
Herr Kaloi?
exchange between Senator Rand Paul and Biden's
Herr Kaloi?
Assistant Secretary for Health, Dr. Ray. Has also been
Regulations considered completely dangerous because they think they get terms is really always carried out minors, violence, and children. American culture is now normalized the value of minors and their biological development of secondary characteristics. Until the beginning of supported both allowed minors to give hormone blockers to prevent them from going.
So sick to her parents. Like, yeah, I'm down for it. Let's do that. Even my mom was
Shut up.
Secondary sexual characteristics. American College of Pediatricians report that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence.
Was brauchst du, Herr Kaloi?
Not
Schau
exposed to
mal.
medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, we believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex.
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. If I am fortunate enough to be served as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I look forward to working with you in your office, coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender.
The specific question is about minors, but the more specifics is related to the question. Do you support the development of your community to override parents' consent to give a child blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputations surgery?
Der BDU wird viel.
make a worthwhile decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex nuanced field, and referring to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and complexities.
Let those who have used to answer the question, but you don't give an answer. What do you want about that decision? What did the checks for? 10% is between 10. We should be outraged that someone's talking to a 3-year-old about changing their sex.
Thank you so much, sir.
As working on
As you can see, there are children on grave danger from government schools.
we had all frozen like customers and stuff, but you know, it
She's making her back again.
no, but they're like encouraging, they're like, yeah, well, we have a son and a whatever, you know. Why are you gonna, like, every little boy at some point has all of them, like, to their mom, oh, mom is now, that's cool, you know what I mean, so like that. You don't encourage that, just totally, like, make them run with it, you know, it's, I don't know, it's just, it's crazy. I don't know, I think
trans women are not. Trans men are not. This is called gender dysphoria.
I looked up and I was like, whoa.
They are sick. We cannot change our language, our very way of life, to make them feel better. The world of language club is one a world where words mean whatever the globalists want them to be. A world where this is sexy. This is a woman. Where only white people, their culture and history are vilified. Where only white people can have undeserved privilege and thus deservedly be hated for it. But the assault on truth is never ending, and the ultimate target is the concept of truth itself. Since I was a child, I have always believed mathematics is the only true universal language. It is as true in Africa as it is in Europe. But in our descent into man, even that seems that's this report, Dismantling Racism in Mathematics and Street, was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This is not globalist point. It is at the very heart of the world shocking virus. Or even to use word like why they are going to use latest to make jabs for a disease with a 99.9% survival rate. In this report, we learn that maths is taught in these white supremacy. The focus on small things such as eating social points also, students of colour write off separate, as can work independently, completing homework and doing teaching classes. Essentially, Africa is it is.
No, it's me, huh? Michelle. And she was one of her friends. She's like, oh, it's not vaccine, I'm going to walk out of the vaccine, something like that. And she was like talking about she was like, I don't know what the job is, something with the workplace. So it's like, all right, you don't volunteer, you're voluntold. So if you don't volunteer to do the vaccine, I'll tell you, but then your turn. You know, like, I was
You ready for it?
I'm just trying to get to do that, you know,
Was brauchst du, Herr Kaloy? Schau mal.
you know, like fucking Angie said yesterday that she is a TA, the only one she goes to school with African. The only ones in our class, no one else is.
So what?
She's saying like, yeah, I don't think they're really
Oh man.
After this, also working.
Der BDU hat viel über ihre letzte Patrouille geredet. Gute Arbeit. Dies sind die heutigen Aufträge aus der BDU. Nur für deine Augen.
You're good, huh?
So her friend was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go get my vaccine because at my work just said if you don't volunteer, you're going to get voluntold.
No, the friend was talking about trying to get up to the yeah, at our workplace, it's saying like,
Was brauchst du, Herr Kaloy? Schau mal.
And it's gonna be all the people who fucking have like EMT stuff. Huh.
This is an arch globalist that is at the very heart of the world of shock and virus. I'll leave it to you to work out why there are those to these lengths to make individuals jabs for a disease with a 99.9% survival rate. In this report, we learn that Max and West is tortured by his wife to a focus on small things such as getting so-called cancer, which students of colour might often suffer, as can work independently, completing homework and doing as the teacher asks. Essentially, this document tells us that the surveys on that telephone is with Max. But this is not a problem. This is not some irrelevant piece of journalism. Recently, we saw this type of thinking implemented in the schools in Boston. Because the normal students get implemented into classes, the task
wow.
were only as smart or autonomous as their neighbors and masters required.
It's not even funny.
No. So this is a very tough time to be.
There's a fat bitch with kangaroo wrists.
I know.
So it's time to rediscover our culture and uncover its culture. It's time for us to make it known to the children, help them understand who they are, where they come from, and what amazing feats their people are capable of, and what they conspire to do for the world. Let us use this time of darkness to be reborn to our identity.
Der BDU wird viel über ihre letzte Patrouille reden. Gute Arbeit.